My name is Bear Siragusa, and this is the Hunting Hound podcast presented by W Hunting Supply.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Hunting Hound podcast. I'm lucky today. I got Nick Gilliland joining us again. How you doing, Nick?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining us again. And thanks for this. Our guest tonight is, I'm really excited to talk to him. I knew a little bit about him before. Like he had registered, but I didn't know enough about him. And you pointed him out to me, and I'm really glad you did. So why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest tonight, since you were the one who brought him to my attention in the first place?
Yeah, he's making his way around globally. I mean, he's getting pretty popular over here in the States, and now Bear's going to take him and slingshot him from Norway on around the globe so we can make us all day around. But Mr. Adam Dean, if anybody has heard anything else I've done in the past and some of the circles I'll travel in, one of the common names that comes up is Adam Dean over in England. How you doing, Adam?
I'm doing well, mate. I'm doing well. I'm quite well known for sticking my nose in where it's not wanted. You know, that's how I make my way around these circles.
Well, it sounds like you're perfect for podcasting then, because that's pretty much all we do is stick our nose where it doesn't belong.
Pleased to be here. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. And like I said, I didn't know your name until Nick pointed it out to me. But as soon as he told me who you were, I immediately could place the name based off of some of the work you've done, because you've done some walking sticks that are just unbelievable, and they're and more interesting than the quality is amazing, and just as interesting to me in this podcast is that so much of it has to do with big game like hounds and big game hounds.
Yeah,
in North America. But you're based out of Kent, is that right?
Yeah, I'm about 30 miles south of London.
Wow.
Sort of semi-rural, I suppose you'd say. I am here, but I'm completely taken with the USA hunting and hound scene, really. Which hunting over here we don't have a lot of. So I just find it really interesting, that side of things. It's really interesting to me that you don't have a lot of hunting over there, because most of the American hunting, at least the hounds, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, you'll know more about this than I do, but my understanding has been that all of the breeds of hound we've got over there that we currently hunt with are English in origin, except for the plot. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, that's the way I've always understood. They're all English in origin, except for the plot, which I believe come from Germany.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. Yeah. So, what do you not have the hounds over there anymore? I mean, I know they
do still have hounds, but they hunting with dogs was basically banned in 2004.
Right.
Was apart from you can still hunt rabbit, and if you accidentally flush other third game, basically it was stopped because of the distress, not so much the killing and the catching of an animal. It was the idea behind banning it was the distress that's caused that animal whilst it's being pursued.
Sure. Okay.
That is why it was banned. So a lot of the old English foxhound packs did actually, they closed up when the ban come in.
Okay.
But they still do scent trailing with them. We've still got beagle packs.
Sure.
Of otter hounds, but we haven't been able to hunt the otter since the mid-60s.
Okay.
So it is here, and I was thinking about this today. This is the big sort of dichotomy about when you look at England or Great Britain, is that we did export all these hunting dogs around the world, but that was then. And now, although we did export them now, that's a dim and distant past.
Yeah,
really, to us now. They're being carried on and developed in other countries. We're not really developing it anymore any further than what they were when they was exported, really.
Sure. That's really interesting. So it's not allowed with any kind of pursuit with dogs anymore? Are you still able to do like the coursing and
No,
nothing like that?
No,
Beagles,
right.
hunting rabbits with packs of beagles?
Yeah, hunt rabbits with beagles.
Okay.
There is a pack quite near to me because I take part I help out on a pheasant shoot, so a game shoot near me, and we have a beagle pack go through occasionally, and a foxhound pack, but they're man training basically.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha. Wow, that's really interesting. Sort of already going down the rabbit hole a little bit here, but
yeah,
what would happen if you've got one of these foxhound packs that are trailing? What would happen if they suddenly cross a fresh fox track? Like, what happen? Are there consequences then if they catch you?
No, I think it's one of those things. It's a law, but it's obviously completely flawed,
right?
Because you can't train a pack of foxhounds not to follow a fresh fox.
Right?
You'd have developed a different breed if you did do that.
Right. Yeah. It's like the definition of trash suddenly becomes a lot harder. It's like you're only allowed to run the dead things, not the live ones.
Yeah. So is there like a, here in America, we have game wardens and Department of Natural Resources. Do you have a police force in there that just maintains the game? Is there anything like that?
No. We have, because we have no public land over here at all that can be hunted on. That's what gamekeeping is really. So we have gamekeepers where there are commercial or syndicate shoots for game birds, partridge, duck, etc. You have a gamekeeper there, and we have a local police officer, I suppose you say, who's a rural crime officer. Mm-hmm. But that's to do with all rural crime, not just anything to do with animals. So it's not policed because there's there's nothing to police in a way.
Yeah. Okay.
So what was it that got you then fascinated in the North American hounds culture to the point where you're making these sort of incredible works of art?
Well, I've always been fascinated with the hounds. I've said previously, ever since I first saw them on the Waltons, Jim Bob had his coon dog and used to go up into the woods with a gun. And I read Where the Red Fern Grows, of course, saw the film. And I suppose I've always been a bit of an American file, really. I love a bit of country and western. My dad's a massive country and western fan. Loves a western movie. Mm-hmm. So we were a bit in that vein, if you like, growing up. So it's sort of always been there, that American thread.
Sure.
And this all happened completely by accident by listening to one of Nick's previous podcasts series, and I just couldn't believe that there was a podcast about coon hunting and hound hunting. I just could not believe it. So I just started listening, and it sort of all fell together.
Sure.
It sort of made itself in a way, because it happened at the beginning of lockdown with the COVID thing, and I was quite happy. I'd always wanted to start making walking sticks. So I'd cut all the timber. It had seasoned years ago. Never got round to it. So I had a bit of spare time during COVID, listening to podcasts and whittling in the shed. That was how it started. So I started about 2.5 years ago.
Wow.
Actually making them.
Perfect storm.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah.
That's amazing.
It sort of led me on this crazy worldwide journey from the comfort of my own shed in the backyard. Really, when I talk to people about it, they're like open mouthed. They think, well, you're just that carpenter from down the road who never goes anywhere. But yeah, that's me. I'll do that as well.
That's amazing. So you're a carpenter by trade.
Yeah.
Like your day job is carpentry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm sort of early retired now.
Okay. Yep.
At 55. But yeah, I am a trained carpenter, joiner. My dad was a carpenter and joiner. I come from quite a line of tradesmen.
Yep. That's good honest work. I did that for years. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I still love it. I love working with wood.
Yeah.
Now I've sort of packed up the day job, as it were. If I go a couple of days and I haven't picked up a tool or touched a bit of wood, then, my wife, Deb, she says to me, it's about time you went out in the shed. So off I trot, and then I'm happy again. It's just part of my life, really.
Right. There's a culture there for walking sticks, though, that is lacking in the United States. And I think I've noticed it a little bit over here as well in Norway, that suddenly I started seeing people walking around, just in town, not a lot of them, but some of them with walking sticks.
Yeah.
And most places that you could go, you could get these little pins that you could kind of push into your walking stick that would show that you'd been to these, touristy places. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. And it's something that, especially the older and more beat up I get, a good walking stick is an awfully nice thing to have. It really is. What was it that, you make your sticks out of a lot of the sort of traditional materials that sound very romantic to me, yew and blackthorn and things like that.
Yeah.
What, where did you learn how to do it? Like, did you just kind of figure it out as you went along? Like that, it's such an amazing thing to me.
Well, when I talk about this endlessly with my wife, because she says, "Oh, it's artistic and that." Honestly, I can't draw a stick, man. I've not got an artistic bone in my body. Art is something I've always really wish I'd been good at, drawing, but I fail miserably every time. So even though being in the timber industry and sort of occasionally you'd come across somebody who's a wood carver, if you needed a bit of particular work done, you'd go to a specialist. And it was like alchemy to me. But really, what I've come to see over the last couple of years is because I'm used to working with tools, my body is used to shifting the weight of how you have to work with a particular chisel. I'm used to using a plate, all these different tools, which are different skills. I have that because I've been doing it for nearly 40 years.
Sure.
And so the sort of the artistic sort of bent doesn't really come into it in a way to me. It's practice. That's what it is, and knowing how to use tools. But you're right what you say, Bear. There is a culture of sticks over here.
Yeah.
And that's it's amazing once you get into a little subject how it's all interconnected, really. Because when people think of hunting and shooting in this country, it's basically 20 or 30 people in a straight line across a number of fields with their guns on a peg, 50 yards apart. Most of them have probably got a stick with them so that they can have a lean on something when they're waiting for some shooting action. And then in front of them, there'll be a line of what we call beaters, which I actually take part in. Some people have got spaniels for flushing birds. So we'll be flushing those pheasant over or ducks or woodcock or partridge. We'll be flushing them over the guns, and we'll have sticks because we'll be beating the undergrowth with sticks. Some people are just
literally beating. Okay, cool.
Yeah, some people just have branch. Some people may have something that's a little bit more worked on. So there is this massive culture of sticks over here, but it's purely, really, because of the way that we've evolved to do shooting.
Interesting. Wow.
My theory on it, anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. That would not have been my guess. You know, but it seems like in so many different sort of realms, there's different sticks for different things. You know, I got into the, you know, years and years ago, I got a little bit into the sheepdog world.
Yeah.
And the intricate shepherd's crooks were amazing.
Oh no, yeah.
They were just gorgeous. And then, you know, my grandmother's family comes originally from Ireland, and you know, every time a family member would go over to Ireland, he'd come back with, you know, something stereotypically Irish, you know, shillelagh or something like that. But even those were, you know, the ones that were done right were just things of beauty. Really, really gorgeous.
Yeah.
So
they're amazing things, because they were a little bit of a weapon as well, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Supposedly.
Right? Yeah.
You know, they're sort of club-like, aren't they?
Yeah. And I read a little bit about them, you know, and my understanding of it anyway is that they're mostly made of the blackthorn?
Blackthorn, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that the heads were right, that the heads and a lot of the length of it was made of sort of the root system, so it had a lot of flexibility and some weight. Do you do that with yours?
No, I don't harvest. I've harvested a couple that have got a root ball on. Mm-hmm. Or if I see a nice piece of timber that's, you know, a nice straight shank, like a sapling, really, a nice straight shank, and it's going into the ground and it's diggable. But no, I don't. I've been asked to do shillelaghs, but I wouldn't even attempt one, because they're like a stick within themselves. You know, something they can be made left or right-handed. You think it's just a ball on the end of a stick, but there's a lot more involved than that. Right. And obviously they take a lot longer to season, to dry out ready for use, because you're cutting the root ball, and not something I do. I've sort of set myself the parameters that I'm only using wood that I find that I bring out the woods myself. That's
awesome.
That's sticks I cut and pieces of wood, and I only really use wood for the heads that I find that's fallen wood.
Okay.
For that, because there's so much downed wood when you really look in a woodland, you don't need to cut anything. Not from an ecological point of view. It's just saving myself a bit of work.
Right. You know, I think you're kind of underselling yourself, though. From what I've seen and what I've heard, you know, you say you don't have an artistic bone in your body. I think maybe pen and paper wouldn't be your medium, but definitely when it becomes to these walking sticks you make and working with wood, you definitely are an artist in that medium for sure.
Thank you.
To see these things, the fact that you're not like going down to the hardware store and buying a slab of wood and coming home and using a laser cutter or this. I mean, just to know that you've gone out and personally handpicked this piece of wood from the countryside, come home and spent hours and time of hand work into that to bring forth that image of whatever you decide to put on that stick and work with the wood grain and the texture of that thing. That is definitely the definition of an artist, and I have to applaud you for that.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
I completely agree.
Strike rate. I generally get through about 3 pieces of wood to one finished stick, because I'm often not happy with the grain. And I always try and use a piece that sort of have got a bit of the shape of how I want the finished creature to look. Because most sticks, this is what didn't really interest me about making sticks for the market here, is if you can imagine like a posed animal, most of them I like a bit of movement, try and put a bit of movement in a stick. I think that's what I'm trying to do with the animals, you know, trying to get them in some sort of one of their sort of natural, well-known poses. that might just be a little camera click.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm beginning to sound arty. I like
that.
Well, I mean, but to kind of build on what Nick was saying, I totally agree. I mean, it's like you give Mick Jagger a flute, he's not going to sound like. I mean, I don't know Mick Jagger. Obviously, maybe he's a flute virtuoso, and I don't know. But I suspect that he would not. He really wouldn't be that impressive on a flute. But you put you put a microphone in his hand, and suddenly he becomes an artist. I really think that it really does depend on the medium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. And in my case, it just all come together at the right time.
Yeah,
right.
All those little aspects come together, and here we are.
So, just not to jump in front of you, Bear, but like whenever you said, "Hey, I like to make these walking sticks, and I like these American big game raccoon hounds."
Yeah,
let's put one on one. When was that moment? How did that happen? What come forth to create that?
Well, I don't want to keep going back. Don't want to keep blowing your trumpet, sir. But it's when I was listening to your podcast, I thought, I'll do them boys a stick. That's or a coon hound. That's how it comes to me.
Okay.
Literally, whilst I was listening, I thought, oh yeah, I'll do that because I'm enjoying this so much. And the thing I love about podcasts is, they're given away free. You know what I mean? And they're a very engaging medium because you can say things in a way that's not acceptable on, standard broadcasting means. You can be a lot more niche.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a personable medium to me because, a lot of the people that do make podcasts, they're just sitting in a little room, like all three of us are now, with a microphone in front of us. There's no massive studio and a team of people behind you.
Well, there's a pretty good team of people behind me. I'm not going to lie. Colby does an amazing job, and so does Jason and those guys, But I'm sitting in a little room with a microphone in front of me. That's 100% accurate.
it can be a one-man band,
right? Oh, absolutely. And some people do some amazing stuff on their own. Ben Sheets has another podcast, the Tree Talking Time podcast.
That's right. Yeah, that's another one. I'll listen to him.
To my knowledge, he does that more or less all by himself, and turns out a really good product. Every week, he's
and that's people are doing that because of their enthusiasm and their love for the subject that they're covering.
Yeah,
that's what's unique about podcasts, I think.
Absolutely. So
it puts the nerds in charge.
That's right. I mean, it's absolutely true. It's we're basically, that's what it boils down to, is that everybody who has a hound podcast, I think for the most part, or has a podcast in general, at least their bottom line should be that they're geeks. I'm a dog geek. I've always been a dog geek, and I'm always going to be a dog geek. And I like talking about dogs and things related to dogs and people, and people whose other passions kind of spill into the dog hound world. And, which is certainly why we're talking to you. Cause you're doing this stuff that sort of speaks to my soul as a houndsman. And, do you have hounds yourself? You don't have hounds.
I don't. I have an English cocker.
Mm-hmm. So they're great dogs.
Russian Spaniel.
They're great dogs.
He's an absolute demon of a dog. Honestly, you will not.
In a good way.
Yeah, I didn't know how to take that.
You will not. You will not find a more relaxed at home dog. Honestly, because spaniels do have a little bit of a reputation for being too fizzy all of the time. Mm-hmm. But you get a good one, and they're sort of used to, you sort of train, well, like most dogs, you train them from an early age. He's definitely got an off switch, but he's got a massive on switch when you put him on game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so much so, that I sort of adopted a hound way of training him, if you like, because, again, I was thinking about this. A lot of the way we need to train our dogs in this country is they need to be uber controlled when you're using them on a shoot. You know, that dog has got to stay in line with you, perhaps not go more than 10 feet from you. It's got to sit when you tell it to sit. It's got to turn around, bring you back a good bit of game on the money.
Right.
And it's going, in a way, you're curbing, well, I suppose most dog training is, you're curbing that dog's instincts to use it for your own ends. Yeah. I guess that. But what I love about what Americans have done with hounds is they've taken it to the opposite end of the scale. And like they say, it takes a lot of shoe leather to make a good coon dog. Because you're going out every night and you're letting that dog loose in the woods and you're trying to make it as successful as possible at training itself.
Right.
That's what I love about it. It's the total natural instinct of that animal. And it's either got it or it hasn't.
Right.
That's what really fascinates me about hounds. It's because they're unfettered instinct to me.
Right.
And
that makes, I agree with that. Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's what's fascinated me about them as well, is this, you know, I've talked about it a little bit on the podcast before, you know, with the Huskies, it was all about control. It was all about reining in this sort of natural predisposition to be just hardcore and insane.
Yeah.
And with the hounds, it's that, and I struggled really with that in the beginning, especially. It's just that you need to have that ability to just let go and just let them do their thing and trust that their genetics and their instincts are going to be enough to have them do the right thing. And that's, it's magical, it's beautiful, and it's terrifying all at the same time, you know?
I've sort of tried applying this to my cocker because he does come from really good hunting lines, well, trialing lines, really. And once you get into the spaniel, well, most gun dogs in this country, there's a massive difference between a trialing dog and an actual working dog.
Oh, yeah.
You know, in their temperament and how well they actually hunt. There's a massive difference. And he's 5 years old now, my dog, and I had massive trouble controlling him. He would always run in on game. Always. And it's kept happening, you know, 2 or 3 seasons, to the point I was not going to use him anymore for hunting. So, but I thought, what I'll do is, they've not banned e-collars over in this country yet. They were just about due to ban e-collars, and then we had lockdown, and it never went through as law. So I thought, so I got in touch with Brent, talked to him a bit about e-collars. So I ended up getting myself a Dogtra e-collar, which was the perfect one for me. And I thought, right, now I know where that dog is at any one time. I'm just going to let him go. And if he goes too far, I'm going to tone him back in. It's all about timing with e-collars, Nick, isn't it? You know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know, you've got to be bang on the money when you need that little bit of correction to occur. You've got to be right there on the right time, or you're frightening them for the wrong reason. So anyway, I just thought I'll let him go. And he did learn that once that collar goes on, within about 2 trips out, he stopped running after pheasant. And I only zapped him twice. So I thought, well, right, now he knows when I strap that on that I've got a little bit of control over him. I'll just let him go. And honestly, the game that dog finds now, through his own instinct, is incredible. because normally, a gun dog is not allowed. It should be polishing your boots, really, and finding game. But how much game do you really find 10 yards from your feet? Yeah. I mean, we might find some here because a lot of it is raised game and it's released into the wild. So a good example of what he's like now is in the early part of the year here, there's some fields near me, some water meadows. We get a lot of snipe on them. We get flocks of snipe coming. And just by letting him go, I walk onto these snipe fields. He knows exactly where the marshy bits are out in the middle, where those snipe are going to be. His speed slows down. He puts the brakes right on. His nose is glued to that grass and that mud. And he stalks his way through the grass, trying to get as close as he can to those snipe. And I've not taught him how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
He knows when he goes and he smells a certain bit of marshland, could be a snipe about, time to go into snipe mode. And he does it now with rabbits as well. He put him in briars with rabbits. He searches it. Oh, it's incredible. And that's just by letting him go in a hound-like fashion.
Sure. Wow. That's really interesting. Are you able to actually do some hunting yourself? I mean, you're able to train him, but are you able to hunt a little bit yourself, get out there with a gun? And
I haven't got a gun. I still haven't got a license for a gun. We're allowed shotguns here.
Right.
And that's it.
Right.
I still haven't got a gun. And I've sort of talked myself out of it now because I just like seeing the dog work. That's really, once that bird goes up, it doesn't matter to me whether it's shot or not, really.
Right.
And I certainly haven't got the wherewithal to be able to control the dog and control that gun and point it in the right direction at the right time. I'm 55 now, and I'm a bit of a late comer to the party anyway. So trying to learn all those skills, I'm quite happy just, working the dogs. And I've got another dog I work, which belongs to a gun dog trainer friend of mine. So I'm quite happy just working the dogs, really.
Right. Yeah.
And watching it. I love that puff I know it sounds horrible, but I love that puff when a pheasant gets hit. And that split second of when it's zooming along at top rate, and then you get that little poof, and it drops a gear. It's probably not a nice thing to say, but it's a good thing to see.
I totally get that. I totally get that. I get that same feeling.
I don't say it, but it's a beautiful thing to see.
I totally understand that. It's, when I'm hunting deer, you've got that initial shot, and then you wait for that sort of, that impact sound. It sounds like a horrible thing to say, but you hear that impact sound and it's just like, everything so far anyway, everything's come together. You've hit it. You just hope, you hope you hit it well and blah, blah, blah. But I totally get that. It's it's all part of the full experience of hunting from, start to finish, especially with dogs.
It's a primal thing.
It is.
Exactly.
And an urge in some people that others may not have.
Right.
That's all it is. It's so I'm quite happy doing that anyway.
Absolutely.
It's not the kill of the animal for people listening that you're explaining. It's the climax of the situation.
It's the coming together of all those people involved in that day, or maybe just one person out in the woods that's planned all that for a season or more.
Yep.
Trying to find that buck that they know is out there somewhere, and they keep finding traces of but never see it. And then all of a sudden, that one's coming to sight. That is it. Somehow that is it. And it's all coming together.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I totally understand what you're saying.
It's a much misunderstood thing. Well, very easy to misunderstand.
Yeah. Yep. No, I believe that if most people could experience that moment just for a minute, just one time, I think we would have a lot less misinformation and a lot less misunderstanding when it came to hunting, and especially when it comes to hunting with dogs, because just the realization of how much work went in to getting that dog to that point, where it all comes together is just astounding.
So like with the people who big game hunt or deer hunt without aid of hounds, you've got the practicing with the bow, practicing with the gun, finding the land, scouting the deer, so on and so forth. And they'll understand that there's a lot of that goes into hunting with any kind of dog for any kind of game you're in pursuit of with that dog. It's actually a combination of years, like you've got the new beagle puppy there now. You have bought this beagle puppy. You went through a recent almost trauma, so you survived that with your beagle.
Oh,
now
me,
now you have to train him for years. And the one day where he's a year old or 2 years, whatever it may be, when you take him out and you see him pursue a game and you're able to harvest that game, at that moment, it's like all the sum of all the effort that has went into that dog for however long it has been has climaxed at this very moment. It's not in that game. It's not walking up and grabbing that game and looking at that game or taking it home and eating that game. It's the fact that you were able to achieve this with all the effort that you, in partnership with that animal, put in. That's the beauty of it to me.
I 100% agree. Yep.
That was a lot more eloquent than the way I described it. That was, spot on, sir. Spot on.
I totally agree. It's
take it further. It could be the culmination of 5 or 6 generations of breeding to get the dog that comes together with that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just 1 or 2 out of a litter that can do that. How you want it to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a lifetime of work for a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. It's, but it's, I guess a little bit like the carving, you in the woodworking, you sort of, you start and you start to figure out how to do it. And, the longer you do it, the better you get at it. And, eventually you end up having more. At least I'm still waiting for this point to hit this point with the hounds myself. I got to this point with the huskies where, eventually it seems like, you start to give the impression you really know what you're doing, man. It's like, you're actually getting pretty good at this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's the culmination of just such an enormous amount of work and time, but also just dedication, because that's the other thing is, say you go out, say you're out doing this 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a week. That's all well and good. But if you're not thinking about it the rest of the week too, you're still not going to get there.
It's an enormous amount of thought.
It is.
Because like anybody who has, I don't know, if you are a bit of a nerd about something, it's going to occupy a lot of your waking hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Isn't it? In the car, whenever, sometimes at work, when you're doing something else, you're going to put a massive amount of thought into that all the time.
Absolutely.
And that, again, like you say, that's part of what all comes together.
Oh,
borderline obsessive about it. You almost have to be borderline obsessive about something that you're going to be into like that.
Yeah. I don't think it's borderline.
It's not.
It's full blown. So you are early retired as a carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
You've gotten fully into this walking stick carving, woodworking. Mm-hmm. Have you started your own company? What is your what's your company called? How do people get more information about you?
Well, I've got an Instagram page, and the company called Root and Branch USA.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm only producing sticks for the primarily the American market, but for houndsmen and hunters.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm producing sticks for. Yeah, if you go on that Instagram page, you'll see quite a few of my reels.
Mm.
At the moment, I'm in the process of building up some stock, so I've got about 10 or 12 sticks ready to go, ready to be launched, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a series of 4 mountain lions.
I saw the beginning of those. Those were,
So
it's unfathomable to me that you can take a block of wood and turn it into something that looks that lifelike to me.
I can't explain how it happens. So I really can't. I mean, the first bit is easy. I just cut a silhouette out of a block of wood that's the right shape of that animal. That's all I do. And then it feels like I'm joining up the dots in a 3-dimensional way.
Right.
Really, you plot a few points, but as I go along now, I'm doing a lot more freehand, and it's a lot. The less you think about it, the easier it is, really.
Yeah,
right.
Because what you do learn, being a tradesman or somebody involved in a trade for a long time, you've naturally got a good pair of eyes for spotting when something is right, in line, a little bit out of kilter. So just trust yourself and don't overthink it, really. But I've produced plenty of firewood as well.
Right.
Now that name, Root and Branch, can you explain to everyone listening what that means in per se of what you're doing? So I think people might think you're just grabbing some 2x4s and cutting this stuff. I mean, I know we touched on it, but explain a little.
I've used that because I basically use all different parts of the tree. I'm not just taking a prime piece of lumber that's been taken out, the nice quarter sawn piece of timber. I use a root bowl. Sometimes I will use a root bowl, a piece of oak root bowl, because where I am in Kent, there's a lot of oak woodlands, and a lot of those trees have blown over the years, and they're beautiful things to see. When it's just an upturned tree, but when you see it, you see the root system sticking up in the air they're like dorsal fins. These big roots that you get off them. So I use a lot of those, and they have a very strange grain in them. So I use the root, and obviously the branches. I use branches for heads sometimes, and I cut my own sticks, canes. So root and branch, I use all of it, really.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting. I just want to, make sure people understand you're not just going out here and buying lumber to make this stuff. I just think it's so unique. You're taking the root of a tree that's been in the ground for 40, 60 years, whatever it may be, never seen the light of day. The tree falls down, it's uprooted. It's destined to rot and wither away, and nobody ever see it again or care about it. Here comes Adam strolling through the English countryside, says, you know what, that right there looks like an old hound dog that I've seen pictures of in America.
It's sort of something like that, but I've started
amazing.
I've started picking on tree stumps. When you see a tree stump's covered in moss?
Yeah.
And like the centre's gone out of it, so it's got like a cut. And you think, most people will walk past that, it's just an old rotten stump. But it's not rotten.
Yeah.
Usually they loosen that you can pull them out of the ground because all the feeler roots have rotted off. But that is a solid lump of oak in there. It's gnarly, it's ornery, it'll take a lot of work. And I can't tell you how many times I've pulled one of those up, and then I think, oh, no, it's a mile to the car again. That's what it's like. It's like, but I've got to have this bit.
It'll keep you fit.
Really nice bit.
It keeps you young, I guess.
Hard enough.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I just have to make it harder. So, but that's what it's like. That's how I find it. And also on my dog, that's another good thing about the dog Trap. Well, I spit in or the Garmin, where you should be saying your dog has treed, or That's where I put a marker in to know to come back next time and find that stump. So
Adam is rooted. Yeah.
His maps are full of some interesting waypoints.
If I can squeeze a little bit of hound kudos out of anything I do, I will do it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's like, the GPS is showing old Adam's rooted right now.
Yeah. He's got one in the ground.
Old Adam's got one in the ground. Wow.
So the only things I buy is a bit of glue, and I've started using what most makers over here use, which is gun stock oil, true oil. Mm-hmm. So even that comes from the USA. Comes from Grand Prairie, Texas.
Okay.
True oil. So I use that on the sticks. It is absolutely beautiful finishing oil. That is, it's the best thing. So
interesting.
That maintains a connection.
Wow. What was the first one you made? Sorry, Nick.
No, go ahead.
First one I made was they were just sort of knobbly sticks to begin with. Then I made a grebe. Do you know a grebe?
Oh, sure.
I don't know whether they have them in America. I know you got them there. You know, crispy grebe. I made a grebe.
Like gosh, what are they?
A bit like a diver, isn't it? It's
it's
Is it similar to a northern diver? They're all sort of part of the same family, aren't they?
Yeah, it's gosh, I'm blanking on the name of what they're called in the States. It's
is this some type of bird? I mean, I'm way out here.
It's like it's some kind of bird. It's like a diver duck, but not really a duck. It's
no. But anyway, so I've done that, and then I went on and had to go at a donkey.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me to do a flamingo, all the strange ones, and then I got into the dogs, the hounds,
yeah.
Wow.
And I've done a bear which I sent off to Clay Newcolm. He's got that. Which I've got I've got some more bears in the offing actually.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
So I've got a massive pile of blanks that I've cut out ready, so they have a second seasoning. Cut them out roughly, give them a second seasoning. And I don't get too snippy about cracks or knots or little bits of rot or woodworm. They just get filled with clear resin because it's all part of the timber's story to me.
Right.
You know, that was a stump. It's not going to be perfect, but it's perfect for me.
Exactly. I like that.
That's how people should look at their dogs too. I think that's how a lot of us houndsmen look at our dogs.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
just fill him with resin.
He's got some holes in him and scarred up and smells like he's rotting somewhere, but it's all part of his story, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's really just a cool thing, you know. I find this kind of stuff so much more interesting than if you were, you know, buying dowels at the local hardware store and 3D printing the heads. You know, it's like, oh, that's interesting. I guess that's possible too. But what you're doing is just kind of taking this thing that so many other people might look at as ugly, a rotted stump. And turning it into something just sort of to us breathtaking and sort of something that resonates with us.
Oh, right. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed it. The big thing is I really love doing it. That's the
most important thing.
Honestly, since I've retired, I'll get up earlier and earlier. So most mornings I'm out in the workshop at 4, 5. If it's gone 5 o'clock, I always think, it's not worth going out now. We're halfway through the morning. So 4 o'clock is a beautiful time to be out. I creep out to the shed. Dawn chorus is just starting. Still hear the owls hooting in the trees over the back there. You can still hear the fox cubs playing. No one else about. Just me and a bit of wood. Beautiful.
I like that. Yeah, you know, there's like a movement through some of the big social media guys. I think Jocko Willink, him being a Navy SEAL, he gets up super early, and you hear all these big influencers talk about how getting up early and spend a few hours of time with yourself before social media, before wife and kids get awake, before you got to go to work. And I've kind of sort of been doing that, I'll come in the office here. I've been reading Bob Ford's big little book, Big Little Tales, and things like that. And you're spot on. If you could just spend a little bit of time in the morning on something that's you want to do, it does a lot for your soul.
Oh, it does.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I remember I was a massive reader. I'm still a massive reader. I love reading. It's it's a beautiful thing to do. I remember when I got my hands on a copy of Woody Guthrie's autobiography, Bound for Glory, which you couldn't buy over here in the 80s. It just wasn't up for sale. But our local library managed to get hold of a copy. So I was setting my alarm for 4 o'clock in the morning, so I'd get up, get a couple of hours in before I went to work. Because it was just and it's a beautiful time. It's a lovely time to read. It's just you and a book, and your imagination can run riot. So I've always been an early riser ever since, I had a newspaper around when I was 14 and up early. So I'm institutionalised now. There is no laying.
I know that, since you've started the root and branch thing, you've had a lot of assistance from our buddy Brent Reeves over here in Arkansas. And he spread the word massively. He got you to make me that first stick, and you sent several over him through connections. I know with Clay now and everything else. Is there an underlying reason for this Root and Branch USA? Is this supposed to be funding a certain thing? Well, I don't know if you want to get into.
I'm hoping to fund a trip over, basically.
Right.
See the great land. I've been over a couple of times in the past, but I didn't have all these friends and people I knew then. So I'd just love to come over. I'd love to come over and just hear those hounds in the night time.
All right.
For real. So with me only, that's what I would absolutely. So that's what it's all about.
Gotcha.
Really.
That's cool.
That's
cool.
Want to get over there, and I'm going to be greedy. I want to do a little bit of everything if I can, cram as much as I can. So I'm doing how I'm going to make all the seasons collide.
You'll get home and be like, "Oh, I don't ever want to look at a hound again in my entire life."
Well, I'm hoping to come home with one if I do. That'll be because there's very few coonhounds over here.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can slip a plot in, I will.
There you go.
So that's the plan, and we're trying to move everything towards that, towards that end. Whenever it happens, there's no hurry.
Yeah,
I'm not intending on going anywhere. It's just happening in its own good time, the same as how these sticks come about. They come about in their own good time.
Yeah. I love that, though, that you have this goal, this bucket list thing, type, however you want to phrase it. So you have this skill and this artistic mind and this thing you're highly interested in and this goal, and you have found a way to patch all that together, hopefully, to a plan to work towards that goal.
I know. It's totally crazy. It's this madcap life of mine. Well, seemingly, pedestrian, but it's not because there's all this going on behind, and to a lot of people over here, it's such an obscure thing that most people can't really comprehend it.
Mm-hmm.
Sure,
the hound, the interest in the hound world and the hunting world, most people really don't understand it. But it's opened up a massive world to me. Massive world,
It's funny though, it's kind of easy to get caught up in things like social media, Instagram. You see these people like you mentioned Jocko Willink earlier, Nick, and find these people that are inspirational because they lead these just sort of grand and fascinating lives that they make they make a big deal about. But the people that I've found consistently to be the most fascinating and actually the most inspirational are these people that on the outside, if you pass them on the street, you wouldn't think that this person is doing something incredible for an incredible reason, working towards a really cool goal. And I find those people so much more interesting than somebody who has done something amazing and then made a huge deal about, look at how amazing I am. It's really fascinating to me. And talking to people like yourself, or, a sort of a closet instrument virtuoso, or, I talked to, there was a guy that I'd passed probably 100 times on the streets of Lillehammer in Norway. And he was always had this little stand, 2x4 thing that he'd made with belts and leather work. And it was like good quality stuff. And eventually at one point I had a couple hours to kill and I walked by him and I was like, I'm going to talk to this guy. And he turned out to be a guy that just loved to travel. He was the former executive on some Italian car company and got into the leather work as a hobby. It's what he did to kind of zero out at the end of the day. And eventually was like, you know what? I've got enough money to retire now. And now he travels all over the place. While I was standing there, I heard the guy speak. I heard him speak Italian, Russian, Norwegian, and English.
Wow.
And it was just like some random dude selling belts on the street. And he ended up being one of the most well-spoken and intelligent people I've ever met. Just following a dream, traveling around Europe, selling leather.
You never know.
You never know.
Who's at the corner.
You don't. I mean, a good example is tomorrow. I'm going to see my father-in-law tomorrow, me and the wife. And he was a welder. He's been a welder all his life. He's now in his 80s. And he's just a little old man on a mobility scooter, like a mobility trike thing. See these people on. But when you talk to him, people are amazed because he had his own welding firm. Him and two friends had a welding firm in the 70s. They employed 200 blokes.
Wow.
Working on oil rigs, building oil rigs in Scottish locks and then floating them out to sea.
Wow.
And he was always a welder. Even though it was his firm, he was on the torch every day. So he'd travel out. And we live as far away from Scotland as you can get, basically, on this island. They'd travel up in a day, do 3 weeks, come back for a week, travel back up. And when that all went pop, when we had the worldwide recession about 87, he had a couple of million in the bank and it all got wiped out overnight.
Wow.
So what did he do? He decided, an American oil company headhunted him. So he went working on oil rigs all down the east coast of Africa. Literally Ivory Coast, Cameroon, Nigeria, Benin, all up there. Ended up in the Libyan desert, welding petrochemical pipelines in 50-degree heat, where you could only weld for 10 minutes in the sun, and then you swapped over the other side with your partner, and you get a bit of shade.
Wow.
And you look at this old timer on his mobility trike, he just looks like an old man.
Yeah.
Right.
But he's a massive hero to me.
Yeah.
That's cool.
What a man's done and still got up, even when he lost everything, and went out to the fight and went out to Africa.
Just went back to work. Yeah.
Yeah, just went back to work. Incredible.
To himself, he's probably just a welder. But to hear that story, that right there's a man of iron.
That's right.
Well, and he really was a welder as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's on a little touching a little bit on what we're talking about here. I talked to somebody recently, a client at work who, we got her dog was there for a little while, and we got to talking to her. I'm a veterinary nurse, so we got to talking to her a little bit. I was asking what did she do, and she was an educator and very well educated herself. Was working on her doctorate, blah blah blah. And she mentioned her husband, and I said, "Well, what does he do?" And she said, "Oh, he's just a carpenter." And I remember like actually stopping the conversation and being like, "Well, is he a bad carpenter?" She was like, "What? No, why?" I said, "Well, you said he's just a carpenter. I mean, unless he's a bad carpenter, like that sounds like something I'd be kind of proud of." And she got a little embarrassed about it, but I think it's unfortunate in today's society where there's this expectation that that this idea of success is movie star, whatever, social media influencer, whatever that is, and to me it's just like the most successful and some of the happiest people I've ever met, the people I've always looked up to were the workers, the carpenters, the welders, the log home builders, they put pride into work that for whatever reason society has started to look down on.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a shame because it's those people that make the world go around, not some moron in a man bun on Instagram. It's like,
you're talking about all this, and I've mentioned in several other places before. My grandfather, he's my hero. And he's been passed now for 5 or 6 years. All my life, though, I knew he was in World War II. I know he drove a tank under Patton and all, and there were some stories, some amazing stories. But since he's passed, we've actually been talking to his brothers and cousins that are still living, and we're hearing these other stories, stuff my mama grew up with him and seen scars on his back and didn't know where it come from. He wouldn't speak of. It's kind of like you're talking about your father-in-law. Just to look at the man, all my life he was Paul. He had worked his hands to skin and bone to provide for his family. Got hurt on the job. Got disability, which he claimed was the biggest blessing in his life because then he could stay home with his wife and, was able to draw a check. Didn't have to work as hard anymore, even though he was nearly crippled. Everybody else would have seen that as a major problem. To him, that was a blessing, and he just took care. He's a simple man who's took care of his family, loved to coon hunt at night to zero out, And then after the fact, you get to hearing all these stories, or I would go to school and I'd learn what the Battle of Bastogne was. Yeah. Oh, I remember my grandpa talking about them coming in there, or I'd hear you say something. I'm like, my goodness, there's so many things that these men don't tell about themselves that if you knew, if you were there, just like your father-in-law, if you were there when it happened, it would blow your mind, And that's to me, that's always the heroes.
They're the greatest generation, Nick. Greatest generation.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt. Both my grandfathers were in the Second World War. They were both heroes to me. Incredible, quiet, gentle men. And yet they saw the worst of humanity.
It's that's another thing that I've noticed when I've talked to people who have been a part of, something like that. They've been, especially veterans of the world wars. My degree is in World War history. And my grandmother was a nurse, a Navy nurse in World War II. And they are the humblest people. Yeah. I mean, the degree to which they sacrificed for, everybody. you know, not just themselves. And most of the times, not for themselves at all, just for humanity.
Yeah.
And they just make, you know, if that happened today, they would be, you know, reality TV shows, you know, stars, and they'd have their own podcasts, and you know, they'd be beating their own drum, saying, "Hey, look at me, look at all the amazing things that I've done." Rightfully so. I'm not saying that they wouldn't deserve that, but it's the humbleness.
In a way, it
blows me
comes
away.
like they didn't realize what they did. You know,
Yeah.
My grandpa, when I talked to him about stuff, I'd be like, "Do you realize the significance of history of where you were and what was going on?" You know, it is just something that needed to be done. So they went and did it, you know, to them.
Exactly,
and that just blows my mind.
They were doing what needed to be done.
Mm-hmm.
No question asked. That's what needed to be done. It's incredible. Incredible. The right people at the right time, luckily for the world.
Oh, absolutely. I dread to think what would happen if people like Jake Paul and some of these other Instagram or, you know, social media people needed to step up and do what was right. I dread to think what would happen if we had to rewind and play that one back today.
Yeah.
But it's I think that, you know, it's people like that, you know, your grandfathers, my grandmother, you know, it's people like that made it so that we have the luxury of being able to do some of the stuff that we do now. You know, I have the luxury of being able to sit here and talk to you guys, and you know, we have the luxury and the freedom to pursue our
hounds.
passions. Yeah. Chase hounds, carve sticks, do podcasts, you know, absolutely. The freedom to pursue our passions. Thank God for them.
That's right.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we went down a rabbit hole on that one.
That's all right. You know, it's amazing way hounds will pull you down a rabbit hole every now and then.
It is. Oh, I love it. That's what I love about doing this podcast. You know, I could come I was on a couple of different podcasts throughout the years. And they always came sent me this long list of talking points, and it's like schedule of like, okay, then we're going to talk about this. And, you know, that was fine. It was still fun to be on those podcasts, but I felt like I ended the podcast with a bunch of questions of like, well, I wanted to ask that question,
right.
Would have fallen out, you know?
Yeah. So Adam, I do have a question. You say, okay, the goal of Root and Branch USA is to supply some funds to one day get over here and hunt. You know, do you have a date when we're going live with this? Guys can buy, or I know people can go to the Instagram now and start following you, so they can keep an eye on it.
Yeah. How do we fund this thing?
Hopefully by the end of the summer, I'll be in a position to have a bit of stock ready.
Okay.
Because Brent and David McDaniels, they're setting up things over there. So make it, you know, the fund the payment to be done internally in the States. So there won't be any unforeseen taxes and any of that for people to contend with. Well, hopefully all that will be set up and ready to roll end of the summer.
Good.
Awesome.
I'm hoping. But I've sort of started posting early just to try and get in the rhythm, build up the followers a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep watching.
Yeah.
And
they can find you. That is
Root and Branch
USA.
Yeah.
On Instagram. Okay.
On Instagram. Yeah.
Are you on Facebook as well?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Not getting a bit complicated with, you know, me and Root and Branch started sort of getting a bit intermingled.
Sure.
I'd rather keep it as, you know,
its own two, right? Gotcha.
Yeah, its own entity, really.
Sure, that makes sense. That makes sense. Huh.
So you've got sticks with hounds. I know you said you've got some bears going out. You've done some mountain lions.
At
You're
the
working on
moment, I've got a raccoon. I've got a raccoon stick. I've done.
Ah,
I have to shot. I'll send you a shot of that.
yeah.
I've got a
Yeah.
raccoon stick. I've done a hog.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Big over hog hunting. That's big over there.
Yeah.
A mule, couple of mules, because I love a mule.
Yeah. Yeah.
Characterful faces. So I've done a couple of mules, and I've got some plots on the go because I've got some particularly plotty pieces of oak. So I've got
Cool.
some
Right.
plot on the go.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just I'm going to try and do everything. If you can chase it with a hound, I'm going to try and make one.
And what I want to make sure people know now, it's almost going to seem hypocritical me saying this because you made mine, and mine is like right there on my little mantle by my TV. I'm looking at it every day along with my turkey. So I'm not toting the woods yet. You're working on something else for that. But you made one for Brent that I know goes in the woods every time he cuts whaling.
He does, yeah.
So your sticks are they're durable. They are made to be used.
Well,
These are not just showpieces.
No. I make them expecting fully
Mm-hmm.
that, they're going to get dirty.
Right. Yeah.
If they get knocked over, you may lose an ear or a bit of a nose. But it's all part of the story.
Exactly.
Right.
Your hounds get, knocked around a little bit, don't they?
Yeah.
So they're made to be used, really.
Yeah.
Made to be. I like to think that if you have one, you're going to take it out there and get it dirty. Yeah.
Right. I always want people to know if they're interested in one, but they're like, hey, I just don't want to buy it just to show it. I want to use it. These are capable. They're ready to go.
I mean, definitely. But, there is a lot of people do over here. They do have like an everyday stick and a show stick, so if you go, when you go to Grand American or whatever, you'll have more of a flash, delicate little number than perhaps.
Right. Use the other. You maybe use the other stick to knock that old coon off your coon's hound's head.
Right. Yeah. That's right. Well, I'm really pleased with the raccoon one I've done. That's come out really nice. That's got some bone. I've set some deer bone teeth in it, just to give it a little accent. That's come out. So I'm looking forward to doing more of those. But I'm not going to bog myself down. I thought I'd try and cover a range of different species, and then people can tell me what's popular and what isn't.
Wow.
It looks to me I'm gonna have a wide collection of root and branch sticks for too long. I didn't know about this raccoon stick. So.
I'll give you a special price.
Oh man,
well.
I can't wait for this to go live. Yeah, I'm in. I always walk with. I've got a little bit of a bum leg, and I always walk with a stick. Like I always walk with a stick. So I was like, when Nick brought this up, I was like, oh heck yeah,
yeah.
This
you
is
see,
combining two of my realities, hounds and walking sticks. This is great. So I can't wait for you to go live with this.
Well, my dad, he's always we would go deer hunting or whatever in these mountains, and we'd just break a stick and head up the hill and use it, and Dad doing the rabbit hunting thing all my life, he's always just picked up a stick and kind of beat the brush, help jump the rat, which I know, you're supposed to have dogs do that for you. So, but just the whole idea of this, I love it. I'm going to use you work on it for one now that I'm going to use a lot, and I love it. This is just amazing.
Yeah,
I love what you're doing, Adam.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Thanks for being a vocal supporter of me. It's just amazing.
Well,
and that's what I found about the hound community in general. Although people could easily think, well, he doesn't really apply to what's going on over here. No hounds, doesn't hunt. But people have just been so welcoming and friendly. I've had no negativity at all from anyone. People are just really open and pleased that someone from so far away is interested in what they're interested in.
Yeah.
It's a small world.
It is. You get into some of these niche, interests, and the world suddenly does become a small place.
It does.
Which I love. I love that about about a lot of this stuff. Yeah.
People are coming together, something like this, you're coming together for a good reason.
Yeah.
A common purpose, not a divisive common purpose, but a cohesive common purpose. That's what I like about it.
And this time and age, when there's so much division, it's so refreshing to find common interest with folks you don't even really know. It's
exactly. Folks you never even thought would have that common interest.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you'd asked me a month ago, how many people in Kent love American Hounds the culture, I would have been like, there's probably one
we know of.
maybe we just managed to meet that one.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Adam, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk about what you do. I really appreciate what you do. It's a works of art
work as well. So it's nice to be invited on.
Oh, absolutely.
It's lovely.
Absolutely. And we'll put a link to your Instagram page in the comments or not the comments, but the episode notes.
Yeah.
And then please do keep me updated when you've got your site up and running, because I'm going to share the heck out of that.
Lovely. Thank you very much, sir.
Absolutely.
And I'll see you in the woods one day.
I hope so. Come to
you two got to get together. Y'all
I was
going to
say you're practically my neighbor over here, and it's Europe, the American sense of geography. You're practically right next door.
Yeah, just down the road.
So but seriously, if you want to come and listen to some hounds work, you're always welcome to take a Norwegian vacation.
Oh yeah, I've always wanted to come to Norway. Actually, Scandinavian countries I find really alluring. Really, yeah.
Oh, it's a beautiful part of the world. It really is. So, get over there and get some coonhound time, and come over to Norway when you need a
love to. Thank you very much.
Need a refill. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This has been awesome. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I really appreciate you coming on, Adam, and I really appreciate you bringing him to my attention and coming on and helping me host this one, Nick.
Oh, yeah. I appreciate you having me on here. And
it's always good to talk to you.
It's great, man. Thanks, Adam.
Well, thanks, Nick, for putting me forward, and thanks, Bear, for having me on.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Okay, mate. See you soon.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Man, I love that sound.